talked about peak oil, he talked about human rights, he talked about global warming,
with skillful
he talked about
manipulating
the
of
UN, he
press,
talked about the NWO.
they're able to make the victim
They're
look
prepping
like
for mega.
the criminal, and the criminal look like the victim.
Once the red carpet gets rolled out for this New World Order program, everything is free game.
I welcome you to Make It Plain TV.
You still don't get it, do you, boys? There ain't no countries anymore. No more good guys. They're running the whole show. They own everything, the whole goddamn planet. They can do whatever they want. What's wrong with having it good for a change? Now, they're gonna let us have it good if we just help them. They're gonna leave us alone. Let us make some money. You can have a little taste of that good life, too. Now, I know you want it. Hell, everybody does.
You do it to your own kind.
What's the threat? We all sell out every day. Might as well be on the winning team.
So the question specifically, my black son, okay, I know you're scared to say black. I know you're scared to say reparations because it seems like every time...
Ma'am, I don't think that's a fair
I'll let you
statement.
finish as well. But it seems like every time we talk about black people and us getting something for the systematic oppression and exploitation of our people, we have to include every other person of color. So today, can we please talk about specifically black people and reparations?
We can talk about what I just indicated, in my view, is that when you have, and you and I may have a disagreement on this, because it's not just black, it is Latino. There are areas in America, in poor rural areas, where it's whites, okay? So I believe that in a country which has more income and wealth inequality than any other country, that yeah, the time is long overdue to start investing in poor countries. We have the highest rate of childhood poverty of any major country on earth, especially within the African American community. So what I've said black 50 times, all right? That's the 51st time, all right? But this is a national issue, all right? So what we want and what I believe we should do, all right, is to invest most heavily in those communities most in need. And when you have 35% of black children living in poverty, when you have half of the kids in this country in public schools on free or reduced lunches, when youth unemployment in the African American community is 51%, those are exactly the kinds of communities that you invest in.
Do you think Democrats really believe in reparations for African Americans, or is it just a good talking point for this campaign cycle?
I don't want to, I don't want to speak for other people.
Mm-hmm. Now, why does it seem like this week you've been kind of dodging the reparations question? Senator Harris and Senator Warren have both kind of spoken out and said that they agree with some form of reparations.
Well, what the question is, I'm not dodging the question.
Our biggest issue of Bernie Sanders, more than the other two candidates, and also Elizabeth Warren, she talked about, she has some agreement with it, but she feels Native Americans need to be added, but we'll deal with Elizabeth Warren another time. Bernie Sanders has an emphatic no when it comes to reparations for African Americans. And he doesn't like to even talk about it. He gets a little bothered. But let's roll just some short clips of him and all his denials of reparations.
Your position specifically on reparations. I asked the question because Elizabeth Warren, Julian Castro, they've indicated they want to support.
What does that mean? What do they mean? I'm not sure that anyone's very clear. What I've just said is that I think we must do everything that we can to address the massive level of disparity that exists in this country.
I'll tell you what they mean, because Elizabeth Warren has said black families have had a much steeper hill to climb. We need systematic structural changes to address that. Julian Castro has said, I have long thought that this country would be better off if we did find a way to do that, reparations.
Well, I agree with what Elizabeth said.
So you would support reparations?
But read what she said. What does that mean? She means, I think, I don't want to put words into her mouth, is what I said. Okay?
African Americans are starting to call for reparations for the many years of stolen labor through slavery. Is that something that you would support as president?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think it would be, first of all, its likelihood of getting through a Congress is nil. Second of all, I think it would be, very divisive.
Why not support reparations then?
What do you mean by reparations?
By reparations for slave defendants.
I know, but what does that mean exactly?
money?
Well, I think that right now our job is to address the crises facing the American people and our communities. And I think there are better ways to do that than just writing out a check.
Just wanted to recap that. Now, Bernie Sanders isn't for reparations at all for African Americans, but guess who he's okay with having reparations? His own people. See, if you had an issue about reparations, then you would take that no matter what position that you're in, whether it's your own people or someone else. But he was okay with it for his own people. Now let's go ahead and go to the computer real quick, and I want to show you how he was for reparations for his own people. So ladies and gentlemen, you're seeing here the Holocaust Rail Justice Act. Now this is the reparations that Bernie Sanders was for, because as we know that he says an emphatic no when it comes to African Americans and their hurt and pain, but he says yes to his people. Now, this is the bill that he was pushing for. Now, it says a bill to ensure that the courts of the United States may provide an impartial forum for claims brought by United States citizens and others against any railroad organized as a separate legal entity arising from the deportation of United States citizens and others to Nazi concentration camps on trains owned or operated by such railroad and by the heirs and survivors of such persons. Now, Charles Chuck Schumer, he sponsored that bill. Okay. Now you may say, well, what Bernie Sanders has to do with this one? If we go to details here, co-sponsors, as you will see here, Bernard Bernie Sanders. So he co-sponsored this bill. Okay. And this is the bill that he wanted, and he wanted reparations for his people. We're going to prove that. So it just say in the summary of this is introduce a Holocaust Rail Justice Act grants U.S. District Courts original jurisdiction over any civil action for damages for personal injury or death that arose from deportation of persons to Nazi concentration camps between January 1, 1942 and December 31, 1944, and is bought by or on behalf of such person against a railroad that owned or operated the trains on which the persons were deported and that was organized as a separate legal entity, declares that no law limiting the jurisdiction of U.S. courts shall preclude any such action, and no such action shall be barred because a statute of limitations has expired. It makes this act applicable to any action pending on or commenced after January 1, 2002. And that says direct Secretary of State to report to Congress on the status of access to wartime records and archives concerning the wartime activities of any such railroad that engaged in the deportation of such persons to Nazi concentration camps. So this particular bill, remember, Bernie Sanders, let's go back to details here. Bernie Sanders was okay with this for his people. But when it comes to us, it's a no. Now, this bill did not get put before the Congress and the Senate. It didn't get to that point. But it was causing so much stir with this, they started putting pressure on France. So what France did in return with this is say, you know what? Okay, we're going to get $60 million and we're going to give it to the U.S. Treasury for the Holocaust survivors. Take a look at this article written November 3rd, 2015. French to pay $60 million in reparations to Holocaust survivors in the U.S. and beyond. Okay, so Bernie Sanders had no problem with France giving a reparation to his people. Now, they paid the $60 million to the Treasury Department, and they dispersed the money to the Holocaust survivors. Now, Bernie Sanders didn't say anything about that. He co-sponsored that particular bill. But when it comes to you, ladies and gentlemen, what does he say? No. That's what he says to you. Now, to get a little breakdown of it, we'll go to the New York Post, and we'll scroll down here. They talk about that. And as we come down right here, the money should break down to about $100,000 for each for the survivors and tens of thousands of dollars for spouses. Okay, so that's how that was broke down. So they got 100,000 each spouses. You know, people that wasn't even a survivor, they got tens of thousands. But yet Bernie Sanders says no when it comes to you, but he was okay with taking those payments because he got it. You understand what I'm saying? So Bernie Sanders is extremely foul, extremely. And I'm glad all the receipts are coming out on him. So as you saw, Bernie Sanders signed on to that bill, okay, to try to get a reparation for his people. His supporters try to talk to you on Twitter and say, where did you find that out, that he was supporting reparations for his own people, but not for African Americans? Now you know where to go to. You saw the bill. Now the bill itself, as we talked about, didn't get voted on, but the pressure was put on France. They paid it. We know this now, okay? So Bernie Sanders can miss us with that. This is why Bernie Sanders to us is just canceled. He is not the guy for us because he should understand out of all people about reparations. And he chooses not to go that route, and that's fine. He don't have to. We don't want to vote for him. You see, Bernie Sanders or whoever else is not going to dictate to us, play this little game, play it dumb, try to say poverty and all these little words that you want to use. No, reparations is the talk right now, and we're serious about that. We're so serious when it comes to reparations that if you don't offer it, that's fine. Then we don't have to participate. It's just that simple. And then people will say, well, that means Trump is going to be back in there. He's not going to give you reparations. Didn't say he was. No one said that. But Trump isn't trying to get the black vote, is he? So the Democrats know they have to have the black vote to win. And what we just saw the other day from CPAC with Trump, he's up there literally saying BS. I mean, the whole word on national TV. He's turned the White House to the trailer park. And if you want 4 more years of the trailer park, well, you need black people's participation. And I'm not talking about a small amount of black people. You need all hands on deck to win. You're not going to win unless you are on board with reparations. It doesn't matter what all these other people think or don't agree with, because before the Civil War, 98% of white folks did not agree with black folks not being enslaved. So if we're going to go on that, well, all these people disagree in a poll, then we wouldn't move anywhere. There are people that disagreed with separate but equal. I'm talking about black people should be separate but equal. That's what they wanted. A lot of people agreed that Jim Crow shouldn't end. I mean, there's a lot of things that they wanted to stay. Anything that oppressed us, the majority always wanted it in this country. So when it comes to reparations, they're never going to say, oh, well, it's going to be a popular thing. It has nothing to do with being popular. The fact is you owe that debt and it needs to be paid to heal the evil of America and what they've done to African Americans. And put that money, once the money is paid out, then it can go right back into the economy and actually stimulate the economy. But you really spend trillions of dollars in senseless wars over in the Middle East and spending billions of dollars a year going to hundreds of countries that doesn't benefit us here at home at all. So we're going to continue as time go along with these candidates. We're going to talk about all of them. None of them is going to get a pass from us. Bernie Sanders decided to go that route. Well, that's his choice. But we will continue to also post on our Instagram. Make sure you check us out there. Anything these candidates are doing or saying, Trump too, he doesn't escape that. We'll be talking about it because this is a very, very serious election. Now, when it comes to people like us, we're at the bottom. We are extremely at the bottom. We have nothing to lose. Only we can go is up at this point. So our vote is definitely powerful at this point, and we need to make use of it. You can't shame us, as I stated before. You can't scare us about Trump, but that doesn't work. So it's about giving us what we want, like you give every other group. You don't disrespect them. You don't talk down to them. You give them something. And that we want to be treated equally, just like everybody else. But leave me a comment, let me know what you think about this particular story. And one more thing, as I put on Instagram, Bernie Sanders also signed on to the Clinton crime bill that decimated the black community. So do we really think Bernie Sanders is for the black community? And how can anybody that support him in the black community just overlook the Clinton crime bill that he was okay with? And we showed that yesterday on Instagram, okay? he's okay for reparations for his people, but not for you, and you're still going out to support him. Just want to make sure you put out the information, folks.
Now, why does it seem like this week you've been kind of dodging the reparations question? Senator Harris and Senator Warren have both kind of spoken out and said that they agree with some form of reparations.
Well, the question is, I'm not dodging the question. The question is, what do we mean by reparations? I mean, it seems to me a lot of people mean a lot of different things. To my mind, it means that we have to deal with the fact that there is enormous disparity between the black community and the white community, and that issue has got to be addressed. And I've indicated to you some of the ways that I think it should be addressed.
Well, I think they mean some type of economic empowerment to the African descendants of slaves.
But what does that mean, economic empowerment? I just talked about the fact that I would do my best to change the banking system to make sure that we end racism, that we pay attention to distressed communities, that people get the loans they need to make the investments they need.
What about straight cash payouts?
No.
How much you want,
Sean?
Sean?
Agree with that? Why don't you agree with that?
Well, first of all, you mean just a check to every African American?
Yes.
Well, then there's a check to every Native American who were nearly wiped out when the settlers first came here. I think the way we go forward is to build America together. There are distressed communities, white communities, there are distressed Latino communities. Right now, what you have is a government owned and controlled by big money interests who worries about Wall Street and the drug companies. We're going to change that. And we're going to pay attention to the needs of working families and low-income families in this country in a way that you have never seen.
But this government has also systemically oppressed us in a way that they haven't oppressed other communities, through slavery, through segregation, now mass incarceration. And I think it should be something done specifically for African Americans.
Well, and all of those issues, all right, we are going to deal with mass incarceration. And we're going to invest, I think at the end of the day, if we end the discrimination that exists in financial services, in healthcare, in education, if we guarantee health care to all people, if we, and we're working on a particular program, make sure that every person in this country has a job, because there's enough work to be done dealing with climate change, dealing with our crumbling infrastructure, I would suggest to you that not only the African American community, but every community will be a hell of a lot better off than they are today.
Do you think Democrats really believe in reparations for African Americans, or is it just a good talking point for this campaign cycle?
I don't want to I don't want to speak for them.
Sharice Crawford, we really want to talk about what are you going to do about reparations?
You can get a photo. Okay. You go. Yeah, go. I'm not a selfie. I don't know. Oh no.
Wow, we wouldn't want to.
Thank you, Senator Sanders. Part of the legacy of slavery and Jim Crow in the U.S. is the legacy of income inequality in the U.S. What is your position on reparations to the descendants of slaves?
Well, as I just indicated, there are massive disparities that must be addressed. There is legislation that I like, introduced by Congressman Jim Clyburn. It's called the 10-20-30 legislation, which focuses federal resources in a very significant way on distressed communities, communities that have high levels of poverty. So as I've just indicated, I think we have to do everything that we can to end institutional racism in this country. It is not acceptable to me that the rate of childhood poverty among the African American community is over 30% in this country. That is beyond belief. That African Americans die from cancer at higher rates than whites. So we're going to do everything we can to put resources into distressed communities and improve lives for those people who have been hurt from the legacy of slavery.
So what is your position specifically on reparations? I asked the question because Elizabeth Warren, Julian Castro, they've indicated they want to support.
What does that mean? What do they mean? I'm not sure that anyone's very clear. What I've just said is that I think we must do everything that we can to address the massive level of disparity that exists in this country.
I'll tell you what they mean, because Elizabeth Warren has said black families have had a much steeper hill to climb. We need systematic structural changes to address that. Julian Castro has said, I have long thought that this country would be better off if we did find a way to do that, reparations.
Well, I agree with what Elizabeth said.
So you would support reparations?
But read what she said. What does that mean? She means, I think, I don't want to put words into her mouth, is what I said. Okay? In other words, as a result of the legacy of slavery, you have massive levels of inequality. It has to be addressed, and it has to be addressed now.
In 2016, you said it would be divisive, reparations.
Well, again, it depends on what the word means. And I know you don't want to be divisive tonight.
It's a game of numbers, and we're losing.
Revolution. The only kind of revolution that's nonviolent is the Negro revolution. The only revolution based on loving your enemy is the Negro revolution. That's no revolution. A revolution is loving. Revolution is hostile. Revolution knows no compromise. Revolution overturns and destroys everything that gets in its way. And you sitting around here like a knot on the wall saying I'm going to love these folks no matter how much they hate me.
You call us savages and beasts and mad dogs running the street burning and looting, but we're doing this not for the destruction of the world, but we're trying to prove one point. We want freedom and justice and equality. We want to be treated equal. The best thing to do is give us freedom or at this place will riot with blood.
Here in Detroit, a city of war.